Hey now, welcome to America's leading Formula One podcast. I'm Brian Saperstein. This is Rob Vale, and we are at the dirty side of the track. Rob, what are we doing this week?
This week, we are going to be doing our crash course into Formula One. For all those new listeners, hopefully something to help educate them so when they're watching the races, things make sense. And for the veterans out there, it'll be ammunition for them to poke fun at us when we make lots and lots of mistakes, and they can revel in pointing that out to us. So really looking forward to this. Okay, let's hear the format of the race weekend itself then, okay? So we've said we're going to have these 23 Grand Prix in 2022, and they're all going to follow the same high-level format. So whenever a race trucks around, we're going to be having a practice session, we're going to be having qualifying, and then we're going to be having the race itself. And I say high level because last year threw a bit of spice in, which is they dabbled with the new qualifying format, which is the sprint qualifying, which I'm actually a fan of. I don't know. I don't think me and you have spoken about this, Brian. I like sprint.
I do too. I would like to disagree and create drama, but I liked it as well. I mean, at Silverstone, when George was going around during sprint and everyone was cheering for him, I got a British tear in my eye. I don't know what a British tear is, but I got one and I enjoyed it.
It's a lot more regal than an American tear. The Queen has British tears. Yeah,
it sounds better to hear out loud.
Okay, so let's hit off what we got then. So we got the free practice sessions. I think if it's a traditional set qualifying session, then we get 2 sessions on the Friday of about an hour and a half each, and then 1 on the Saturday morning, and then we head off into qualifying. On the sprint weekends, they bin one of those practice sessions. I think we just get the 2 practice sessions on the Friday before we get the sprint qualifying. So let's talk about the qualifying. So qualification is really to determine what order everybody starts the race in. We've got 2 main ways of doing it. We've got the traditional way, which is we have on the Saturday afternoon, we have 3 phases over an hour where everyone goes around and does their fastest lap they possibly can before the clock runs out. And it's more recently been broken into these 3 phases, Q1, Q2, and Q3 that you'll have heard Brian talking about before. And after each qualifying session, we lose 5 races, I think, in Q1, 5 races in Q2. So we end up with a top 10 shootout in Q3, who shoots out for pole to see who starts pole position on the Sunday. So that's traditional. Sprint that they brought in this time around, which I do like because it makes things a bit crazier. We still get that traditional Q1, Q2, Q3, but that's now on a Friday to kind of bring some extra spice to the Friday session, I think, get some TV viewers and have the people that are paying the money to go to the track actually see something that's worthwhile, I guess.
And for people in the States trying to work, screw up the entirety of your afternoon on a Friday, somewhere around lunch, usually. And then your friends start texting you. Did you see Quali? No, I was trying to earn money, but thanks.
So that qualification now is sets the order for the sprint race on the Saturday. So the sprint race on the Saturday is about 1/3 distance, I think they use as the calculation. It's basically a full-on race, you line up on the grid like you would on a normal race and do 1/3 distance. And then it's the finishing order of that sprint race that dictates the starting order for Sunday. The only thing that's kind of the downside from it, my point of view, and I guess from the teams, is that you do worry that if people crash out in the sprint race, that's a very expensive crash out, right? I mean, and if you properly bin it, then I'm not sure you're coming back on Sunday.
Well, two things I think from the sprint as well, in addition to what you said, making a mistake, and I think Pierre made a mistake. I don't know if it was in Britain or where, but he fell, and Carlos as well, both fell down the order significantly in the sprint, and it just ruins your starting position in the next race. So forgetting even if you crash, the cost of that, but sliding off the track or spinning out has significant consequences for the race that comes the next day. So that'd be my first. The second is you're not technically on pole if you win qualifying. So if you finish Q3 first in a sprint session, great. Now you have to win the sprint to be considered pole position. So it feels a little disjointed there. Like, I don't know if they want to add a second tire award. Pirelli should bring 2 tires that they hand out to the drivers. One is, qualifying first, and then one is sprint winner or something. But I don't like the way that finishing qualifying Q3 in first position is not pole. And the teams, you could hear on the team radio, hey, you finished in P1, but that's not pole. So
And actually, one thing I kind of didn't mention on the sprint race, looking back at my notes, is that one thing I do like the way that they've decided to do on the sprint race is that there's no podium and celebration for the sprint race. Yes, you've done third distance. Yes, you've gone round, but they want to kind of keep the, I guess, the kudos of the standing on the top step of the podium should be for winning on the Sunday. So I'm really glad they did that, because it could have been, I think it could have been a bad move if they decided to go overboard celebrating the sprint race. You celebrate the sprint race like you got pole, essentially.
Did you like the truck they used when they put a garland, literally like a wreath for American listeners? It's like Christmas happened. They put a wreath around them and they drove them around in a truck with an open window to wave to the fans. I thought that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. To have the three drivers who finished in the top three in the flatbed area of a semi waving out a cutout window with a wreath around their head, a garland, as it's called, it was formerly used in Formula One. It was so bizarre to me. Like, all right, we're going to show you the winners and we're going to drive them around in a semi. Like, what?
Right. So to close this section out, Sunday, you have the race. So regardless of what mechanism of qualifying, it's the same deal on the Sunday. Have the race, finish the race, and give points to the top 10 drivers. That point format has changed a little bit down the years. It's always a little bit misleading when people start talking about who's the highest point scorer of all time, because back when I were a lad, I think it was 10 points for a race win, and now it's 25. So you go top 10, go 25, 18, 15, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, and 1. And you can get a bonus point for the fastest lap. But to try and stop people who are back markers just kind of going in on the last lap and putting some fresh tires on and trying to score a championship point, they've basically said you can only get that bonus point if you also finish in the top 10. So it can be a strategic way of robbing somebody in the top 10 of a point, but you can't win a point if you're outside the top 10.
That's a really good point. I mean, a lot of teams dealt with that this year, actually, with stealing that fastest lap point away. But you had to finish in the top 10 to get the benefit of it for yourself. So it's a great point.
And the last line on this is that those points then all accumulate. If me and Brian are both driving for the dirty side team, then whoever gets the most points is the World Championship driver. But we can put our differences aside and we add our points together under our team. And at the end of the year, the team with the most points gets the constructors title. So if you listen to the podcast so far, then you'll have heard us talk about Mercedes winning like a gazillion constructors titles in a row. And that's what that means. That's the team Mercedes winning the championship, not necessarily individual drivers.